Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Countdown to Scream 2022. Joel, do you know how often I write Scream 2020 for some reason? I can't stop doing it.
The commenters have noticed. I
But
do it as well.
it was not even just on our last video. I started to go back and double check some articles I've written, and apparently it's a habit I have.
Well, I think it was probably wishful thinking, right? That we would have already had this
Maybe.
movie.
Or maybe
And
it just goes in the pile of writing, like Captain American and shit like that.
yeah, no, I have some of those in my repertoire of just names that I will always get wrong.
Yeah, there was a long period of time where every single time I tried to type the title inside out, I would start writing Insidious. And
Ah,
that
was it
that
like a
literally
predictive text thing, or were you just literally start writing it?
I think I just love those movies so much that
Nice. Well, they're
I would
very
just use the
similar.
titles interchangeably. All right, we got some stuff to do. This is gonna be our rankings of the Scream kills video, but first, there was something that dropped fairly recently. It isn't super fresh at this point, but we did want to each weigh in with something that caught our eye from the most recent Scream featurette. So, what do you got for us, Joel? What piqued your interest the most?
Well, I mean, there's obviously something in a pram slash baby carriage that has. Do you call it a baby carriage? What do we call it
Maybe
in the
there's a
US?
puppy in it.
Maybe there's a
Surprise.
puppy, maybe one of those really coddled puppies, but if you wanna take that one thing I will say that interested me, and I can't take credit for it because I did see it in another video breakdown of this footage, the featurette being the sort of Ghostface Returns thing that Paramount released a few days ago, but obviously it's gonna be a bit longer than that now, was, two different kinds of, Woodsboro PD, cars or vehicles, one seeming a little older, and one showing characters in the present day that felt newer and fresher, the new look Woodsboro PD. And this particularly astute YouTuber had suggested that this might be a ping, ping, ping sign that we're going to get flashbacks, which would be interesting because you can't really do flashbacks with the characters that were in the original 1990s Scream
Yeah.
movies, unless you're going to go full, Michael Douglas in Ant-Man style thing, which I don't think they're going to do. But we did see in Halloween Kills a pretty creative use of flashbacks to reframe certain things which were iconic to viewers of the original movie. So there could be that. That's me going down some deep rabbit holes. But I think flashbacks could be fun.
I still have the featurette here. You're going to hear me drop it back into my desktop right about now.
Bing.
I really wanted to open up the file and see if I could find any cop car stuff. I I mean I think I see what you're talking about. It's like right at 19 seconds in, I definitely get one car. This car looks not
It's like a
old.
tanned. I think it's more the logo that they were homing
The
in on or something,
logo.
or the fact that it was like a tan vehicle and the modern ones were white. Um,
Okay.
anyway, that
Okay.
is that is and the other thing I'll say that's really interesting is the confirmation of certain names in the series. So
Oh yeah, that's a
when
big
Dylan Minnette and others were talking, they had the character names, actually revealing that Dylan Minnette is Wes Hicks and thus probably related to Deputy Julie. Oh my goodness gracious, my brain is
deal.
gone.
Hicks. Judy Hicks.
Judy, Deputy Judy. Yeah, lemon squares. So, and the
Yeah.
hair would indicate some sort of connection there as
Good.
well.
Yeah, I was excited to see those names finally confirmed, and Meeks
Mm,
Martin too,
yeah,
because in I recently spoke to Jamie Kennedy, and of course I asked him if he has any involvement in the new movie, and he always could be just messing around with me, but I took his answer to be a sincere no. I have no involvement in that movie, and I think that is going to be the case here. But I'm curious to see how Randy's influence on the whole franchise narrative winds up coming through these characters because they're clearly related. So something has to be
everyone
there.
feels related to someone from the previous films. And I will say the other thing that's interesting in this bit of footage is that the phone call that Sam Carpenter, I think it's Sam Carpenter, right? Melissa
I think so,
Barrera,
yeah.
gets is also from Amber's phone. Amber being the person's phone who was used with Jenny Ortega in the quote unquote opening scene, not opening scene that we've seen, um, which was very interesting. So something's happening with Amber, I think, played by Mikey Madison.
Yep.
Not that she's the killer, but I mean, there's something wrong with it. Something her phone seems to be, or ID seems to be a part of it. And the other thing I would say is that the reveal of the baby carriage, the pram, would indicate to me that they are being very tricky in how they're editing these trailers. Because we saw that scene with Sydney
Mhm.
in the original trailer, and they were very clearly holding back that detail. So it does make me feel like the entire elements of what we're seeing in the footage, we could be being misled, or at
Yeah.
least there's a lot of rope a dope and hide and seek going on here to mislead us to say the kinds of things I'm saying right now.
I would, yeah, I'd very much believe that. I'm just now I'm obsessed with, like, whose baby is that? Because I'm
Do
sure
we think it's Kincaid?
I brought that up on Merry Hour Friday night. I would be very amused if it were Kincaid, but I don't think it would make sense given the events of Scream 4. I think there would
Right.
have been a heavier emphasis on that if that was a relationship that had continued. I think it's probably someone I think it's someone completely different. And to me, if I were to make a prediction, it would make the most sense for them to utilize a baby to, give Sydney a little more apprehension when jumping back in.
Mm,
Although every single line I've heard her deliver in any promo material thus far doesn't really convey that. I'm seeing it more from Dewey. So it's just
right.
like it's an interesting choice to give Sydney a baby. And you don't include something like that if you're gonna, aha, I've tricked you, and there is a dog in there, or it's really Sydney's niece or nephew. Like, you don't do that. That's a little bit of a stretch to me. So I really do think she has a child, and I'm just curious. I need to know who's the father, and I need to know why it felt necessary to go that route and add that to her life.
I'm very curious about the second question. I am curious about the first one as well. I agree with you that I don't think it's Kincaid because of Scream 4. Although they may have reconnected, that does happen with people. They did seem very happy at the end of Scream 3 with their
Fair.
popcorn and stuff. But yeah, it's a very interesting question. I will say, as an uncle, I have never ran with my baby nieces or nephews along a river. So I think that's strictly parental duty. So I think it's her baby.
I'm purposely going to force my nephew to ride in a stroller while I run when I get home, just to give a little backing to that possible theory now. See, it could be her nephew.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else from that featurette you want to bring up before we roll into our favorite kills?
No, just that continues to keep me pretty excited.
Yeah.
And definitely felt a little bit more in the vein of the original film. The sort
Yeah.
of chat between the characters, like on almost on the fountain kind of situation, felt very, So I like the direction. It's definitely not giving me pause. It's giving me unpause.
Are you gonna get the Scream cereal?
I really want the Scream cereal. Oh my goodness.
I want it too. I want
I
everything.
I tried to find it the other day. The link was broken at the website that you were supposed to get it, or
Oh,
did you
really?
find some way of getting it?
No, I'm trying to keep myself in check. Maybe I'll
Mhm.
I'll put a picture up right about now, but I just bought this poster from Gallery 1988. So,
Ah, right.
I purchased something, and then I try to rein it in for a little while. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
push pause on purchasing anything until something else
Do we
catches
like
my eye.
the I know we need to get to the kills, but do we like the new poster that was released, with the knife and the
I
reflection
do.
of Sydney?
Yeah,
No.
I do. I've really liked the posters that they've released thus far. I think they,
Mhm.
like, it's not just a piece of artwork, slapped on a poster. It's something that conveys style and tone, and especially, the taglines too. The taglines speak to the story and give us a little
Great.
something to chew on. But the Sydney poster, I think, successfully taps into the history of the franchise and where things could be heading. So I kind of like that it gives us just enough without just feeling like a flat piece of artwork.
Agreed. I just want there at least to be one poster of like 8 cast members, clearly in
Want one
different
too.
rooms,
I
like
want one too.
looking in different ways,
Maybe that'll be
looking
the
way
last
too done.
one. Maybe
Yeah,
the last one will be the new cast members in that,
we need that. And
familiar
I want the
format.
photoshopping so bad. I want the Photoshop to be terrible. Like it needs to be bad.
I kind of want that too. I feel like they're gonna do that, and they're gonna, print it on a VHS box, and they're
Oh,
gonna, sell those or give those out or something.
send it to my home, Paramount,
Right.
please.
Alright. Best kills. We have each ranked our top 5. I do not
Hmm.
know Joel's list. He does not know mine. We're gonna work our way up from 5. So do you wanna go first? Do you wanna reveal your number 5?
Number 5. Okay, so number 5, I kind of wanted to do get get around something on a technicality in that this person should have died in this scene but somehow didn't. Was the Dewey in season 2, Scream 2, in the sound recording thing with the booth, because I felt that's such an emotional moment. But I'm not going to cheat, so I won't
Okay.
use that because
It's
he
a good
really
moment.
didn't die. That's such a great moment. I'm actually going to go with Kenny, the cameraman
Oh,
from Scream 1. Because I felt that that was such an effective sort of just sequence and mechanism
mhm.
with the 30-second delay, and the suspense, and then the payoff with the very quick slash. And it's not a big set piece per se, in and of itself, but it's part of a larger chase scene, which is quite spectacular. And then it gives you the payoff of Kenny, I love you, or what does she say? But get the fuck off my car.
Get
That
the fuck off my windshield.
get the fuck off my windshield. Incredible. So I'm into that moment. That's a small moment. I'll bring on the more iconic moments in the rest of my ranking, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm Kenny. Justice for Kenny. And
Yeah.
Joel was smart enough to get out of there and Scream too, but Kenny was loyal to a
I
fault.
like that choice. You're making me regret not wearing my top story hat right now. It doesn't fit my head though because the damn the patch is so big that it like messes with the shape of the hat. So
Oh my
kind of
goodness.
just like sits out there on display now. But that's a good pick. That one always caught my eye and I think really adds to like the frenetic nature of that point of the film where
Mm,
we've already seen some pretty gnarly kills, but that's a key moment where you have to keep the audience on their toes and keep reminding them that anyone could go at any second. And I think that moment really does accomplish that. I
all
think
right.
I think you're gonna like my number 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere else on your list.
Okay.
I'm going with the Jennifer Mirror kill in Scream 3.
Oh.
I love it because I love Parker Posey, and I am very, very convinced that moment would not be as, both heartbreaking but fun to watch if not
Hmm.
for her appropriately big performance. But then on top of that, I think it's just a very effective use of this mansion-like house where you would have components like that. You have to play with stuff like that. And the intensity of that moment when he is shooting out each pane
Mm,
and it's coming down to the very last second, and I feel like even the first time I watched that movie, I knew that was the end of her, but you're still
I
holding
know.
on to that tiny sliver of hope that he'll shoot it out at just the right time and she'll be okay.
And she's such a fun character, and just
So fun.
her delivery of both the fear and then the like one-liners that are also being just screamed at that time. Like she starts screaming out being the killer in Stab 3, right?
Yeah.
As a defense, and I think that's amazing. It will shock you to know that I actually do not have any Scream 3
Wow.
on my list. Though
Okay.
I have so much love for that film, I think that says, maybe I will say, the Cotton Weary opening almost snuck in for me,
Okay.
and so did Jennifer's. But I chose to go like pretty traditional, I'll say,
Okay.
as a
I have
warning.
I have one installment that didn't make my list either, not because I don't love those kills, but because some of the others are just like too incredible and iconic, but
Hmm.
I'm going to cheat with a quick honorable mention towards the end.
Okay, okay.
All right.
Koth, Olivia.
What is your
My
number 4?
number 4 is Tatum in
Okay.
Scream, the original. I think this. Some people could argue that as far as horror movie kills generally, this could be like right up near 1 and 2. I think because it's
I
so.
feel like I should just say then this is higher up on my list.
Yes, okay, I can see that, but
So,
I think we've spoken about before. I like an extended set piece, so I think this one is quite contained. Not so much as the Kenny one, but yeah, I mean this is an incredible moment. I think
mhm.
It works with her character. It's just iconic imagery. It's a singular idea, and I'll let you speak to that because you spoke to the filmmakers about trying to recapture that single idea concept of a kill. Rose McGowan is so good in this film. And the moment I think I love about this scene as much as I do love the gnarly finale of it all and the ridiculous of it and the sort of anti-physics of it, is when she's like doing the "oh no, Mr. Ghostface, I'm going to do this," and then there's that moment in her eyes when she realizes, "oh shit, this
Mhm.
isn't a game. This is an actual person who's going to do me harm." And I think that performance is incredible. And beer is a very good weapon.
Yes, yes, didn't quite do the trick, but
No,
I would take a cue
not
from
good
Tatum,
enough.
and I would throw beer bottles if I was ever attacked by Ghostface. This is my number 2 on the list. It is hands down one of the most iconic kill scenes of the franchise and also of cinema in general, and, going
Agreed.
back to what you brought up about the filmmakers behind Scream 5 trying to not necessarily recreate, but make their own well-defined kill scenes like this one. I mean, it's all about the fact that, I could refer to this one as Tatum's death scene, but I feel like people most widely know it as the garage scene, or
Yes,
you could say the garage door, or the cat
the
cat
cat
dog
door
door, cat
thing.
door. But like the fact that it is so easily defined by a location or a feature, that does play a pretty big part in this thing being as memorable as it does. And then, you know, and this is true of any horror movie out there, a cool kill concept only goes so far. You need every element of the production working, like, to amplify it. And this is an
Hmm.
example where literally everything happening on that set was just like firing on all cylinders, because her performance is great, and her performance, I think, completely dictates the change of tone in the
Hmm.
scene. And I think it also significantly contributes to the fact that until the garage door starts going up, you've got faith that she could get out of there.
Yes,
Like,
she's a character at that point you feel will could survive,
she's got
despite
real
what. Yeah.
it's fight. It's a fight in her that you believe. So her performance is great. Then on top of that, it's the costume design too. Like,
Oh,
when you picture her dead hanging
yes,
in the
you're
garage
right.
door, like, that look is iconic. So that enhances it too and makes it even more memorable. And then on top of that, the blocking of the scene, the way that
Hmm.
they use that space to, at the same time, they manage to make it feel like so contained and like she's trapped, but keep the scene dynamic by moving around just enough
Hmm.
so it never gets too flat. And by using things like the freezer door and stuff like that, it is a very well constructed set piece from top to bottom, and that is why I have it at my number 2.
Absolutely. Just quick note on costumes. I think these films often that's an aspect of these films that gets overlooked, but there is some really iconic looks. Like you just had to be around Halloween this year to see. I saw multiple people rocking a simple white shirt with like
Mhm.
blood stained thing, just that
Yep.
Billy, very simplicity. And I remember watching that scene with Tatum again this Halloween or this October. And that dress is like, I mean, it's kind of there's a lascivious male gaze moment in there, I guess, but it's kind of like you're almost spirally hypnotized by that dress inside that skirt in some ways. And I will say, on the new footage we just saw, interesting costume nods from the Meeks Mills. Meeks Mills, is that what the no, not Meeks
Oh,
Mill.
oh,
Meeks
yeah.
the Meeks
Meeks Mart
child,
Meeks Martin.
Meeks Martin, the girl.
The Letterman jacket?
No, the sister is sitting on a couch in the Mesher house wearing an outfit that is very color referential to
To
what
Randy.
Randy is
I see
wearing.
it now.
Yes, isn't it? It's a great, like,
Wow.
even Randy's like daggy. Oh, sorry. In Australia, we say daggy, meaning unfashionable and weird. But like unfashionable style has a sort of like penetrated the culture. I
Wow,
mean,
I
even
didn't
Drew
notice
Barrymore's
that.
top in the opening, right? I mean, incredible.
That is a very, very cool outfit that I now want.
Yes.
I like that quite a
All
bit.
right. So you've done your four, and I've done
Oh,
my
no,
four.
I
Oh, no,
did
you
my
d- go.
2.
Okay. Yeah.
So my number 4 is Stu's death, and, this is another one. I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record here, but I can go back to the way that scene is blocked, and also, again, the frenetic nature of it. It's like the peak of the movie, and everything is all chaotic and crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think between that sense of, like, chaos, how they're using the space, and then also Matthew Lillard's performance.
Mm.
Literally everything he does in that movie winds up being some of the most iconic, unforgettable material in the movie. It's just like I can quote pretty much every single thing he says in Scream, but like when he's like right before his head is gonna get smashed, and he's just like you see like the light drain from his face, like he's so
Mm.
angry and he's trying to fight back, but it's just over. And it,
He is ridiculously good in that film. And if
I
you rewatching it, it's so apparent, especially if you watch it with an audience, just
oh
how
god, yeah.
good his lines work.
I feel like some of my enthusiasm for his death is also coming from how good the sequence is before then bleeding into it.
Oh, yes.
It's just like you can't really talk about his death without talking about the whole ending set
No.
piece from the kitchen leading into that moment. But
The phone call is my favorite.
oh,
I just him on that phone, just yeah, anyway.
I still can't believe that that was all improvised.
My mom's gonna be so mad at me.
Can you think of being in, a high pressure situation like filming a movie, and then all of a sudden like a random phone hits you on the head, and
Yes.
you know to stay in character and deliver absolute gold?
Yeah.
Like, that is incredible to me.
Yeah. That is like if there are those sort of 50 performances of the last 25 years, articles, he deserves his
I
place.
I
I
would
think,
very
and
much
I would
get
say
behind that.
they're all good in that movie, but of anyone in that movie, I think yeah,
He's
even the core three.
he's
Um,
special.
my three, is
Mhm.
that right?
3.
Is the one that's on my shirt. So this would be
Ah, okay.
CC slash Sarah Michelle Gellar in Scream 2. I think I've spoken about my love of this particular sequence, and I think part of it is that it's a very like leisurely almost set piece. Not leisurely because it definitely has a lot of tension and suspense, but in the middle of the film, they just carve out basically what amounts to another opening scene. It is the kind of in dialogue with the opening scene that we saw in part one with Drew Barrymore, kind of them giving us that thrill. I think framing rather than blocking, or blocking and framing in this particular sequence is incredible and just sort of demonstrates Craven's ability to use widescreen lenses to just like have us looking at every possible corner of the screen for this character that he's so ingeniously created or at least brought to life. I think the dialogue in this scene is really really effective, and then I think at the center of it you have Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is just instantly empathetic. I think has this kind of face that just open emotion, particularly fear, seems to read really well on. If we saw it in I Know What You Did Last Summer, she got that iconic moment. She got this iconic moment in Scream 2. And then I think it's actually really emotionally affecting by the end because we actually spend this time with this character and get a sense of who she is. She's Mrs. Sensible, sober sister. And then I don't think there's any chance, unlike Tatum, that we think she's going to survive because we get the sense she's a side character from from the early get. But I find myself every time I watch this really emotionally affected by that moment that he grabs her as she's on the balcony and then stabs her, and then it's not obviously as quick one word reference as Garage, but that throwing off the balcony there
Mhm.
is intense and it's memorable, and I think they show us it from about 75 different shots and angles. um, and that scream, I adore that moment. I also adore what follows it, I think, just
Mhm.
because we get some Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi action. But no, I adore this scene. It gives it for me. It's such a beautiful compliment to what came in Scream One.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you that that is a great kill scene, and I don't know, maybe I would even dare to say it would have been in my top 10, but I have a different scene from Scream 2 as my number 3.
Does it involve a daylight murder?
It involves no, not daylight murder. The opening scene. I went with Phil and Maureen's death.
Okay.
Um, and I would actually say a similar thing about their kill scene as I would the Sarah Michelle Gellar scene too. And it's that, these are characters that you know for a mere scene or two in her case, in Sarah Michelle Gellar's case, because
Mm,
the classroom scene, but within mere minutes of meeting them, they managed to make you invested in them. And that's a big part of the reason that those small roles can be so impactful. And it's so incredibly important when you're the opening kill of a movie. You really do need to make the most of every single second before bad things start to happen. Otherwise, those bad things won't mean as much. One of the other really cool things about that opening is that they're killed in public. And when
yeah.
something like that happens, it has I'll call it the final destination effect, where when you are out and about and you see that thing, it triggers that memory. And even though, I'm in a movie theater, I'm not surrounded by people at a stab premiere with masks on or anything like that. Like, if I go into a bathroom stall, I know not to put my ear on the door because someone could be in there with a knife. They can't, but
A very powerful knife that can cut
it's
through wood very quickly. Um,
it ensures that even when you're out and about in a seemingly safe place, it's got that memorable, effective quality that can bring you right back into it in a second.
so this is my second.
Oh, yay. I
Yeah.
think we have the
So
same first.
yeah, I think we might. This is my second favorite kill of the franchise, and I will be honest, I was almost tempted just for shits and giggles and to sort of piss off the comments to put it as my number one, but I just can't go that far. But I agree with you. I think that the scene that might be number one for both of us, but this scene in particular, and its ability to create narrative and character in such a short amount of time, and actually characters that we care about and feel real, is part of the reason I don't like the opening of Scream 4, because I think it went for the pyrotechnics and glib cleverness as opposed to actually allowing us to get to know those two girls at the end of that sequence who felt kind of
Mhm.
disposable ultimately to me. I also think Scream 3 doesn't really work in that regard, even though we have some build up with Liev Schreiber, but I don't think the Kelly Rutherford character really cuts through in the same way. Um, but they do seem to have a kinky, weird relationship. But so Scream 2 though is just, yeah, I think for me it's all about those performances. I think Jada Pinkett Smith is ridiculously good in this
Mhm.
role and just like goes hard in a way that had no business doing. And you're right that there is almost within the scene more iconic moments or just visuals for a scene of this length than are in any of the other sort of sequences in the series. Like just the vision of the people pulling off their masks and realizing what's happening, the vision of Maureen sort of screaming on that stage and looking
Oh
out
my
with the blood coming out and holding her stomach, just him sitting back down, the close up on Omar Epps as he's, leaning in, and whatever that sound is, I don't even know to this day. It's
I've
so
I've
weird.
listened to it so
It's
many
what is
times.
it? I'm like, what is going on, and why? And just the sort of idea that that would happen, and the fact that you're in the theater watching that, you also probably going to go to the loo in a bit. I just adore everything about that sequence, and it leaves me gutted every single time.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Heather Graham and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the recreation of Stab, the recreation of the opening scene um, for Stab, which is just incredibly well done as well.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
managing to mix, but just the tones that are going on in that whole dual sequence is incredible.
I just got hit by the memory of Luke Wilson going, "That's the way the cookie crumbles."
Oh my gosh! But if every time I rewatch the original, I'm just like, it feels more and more like the Stab. That scene is maybe
So
maybe a weak point in the film if there's
I
a weak
don't think
point.
it is. I'm fascinated by that scene, and I brought this up to Skeet, and I don't think he had ever thought about this, but like that, I love that moment where he just goes like stupid
Yes,
after she's left because it's the only private moment we get. Like, what does that
true.
mean? Like,
Yes, within the context of him being the killer, it's
exactly.
very interesting.
'Cause it's like, it
Mm.
feels like it's delivered with, like, a degree of sincerity almost, where, like, one could read it on first watch as I said something stupid, but then when you go back and you know that he's the killer and you re-listen to that moment, then all of a sudden it completely changes.
Absolutely.
It's so
Interesting.
fascinating to me. I love that moment. All
Yeah,
right.
so that's my second one
So,
as well.
obviously, number 1 is
Well, have you done your second one?
I did, mine was Tatum.
Yours was that's right, well, yes. Well,
Yeah,
number one is,
Casey.
obviously the explosion of the home in the Hollywood Hills,
Oh,
with the
yeah.
gas. Yeah,
Yes. Fax machines. They can do
yes,
that.
or almost pipped to the post by, Jenny McCarthy, but, which I actually think is a fun
I
scene.
actually yeah, I think that's a pretty good sequence.
I think the fax
Yeah.
machine is dumb, but I do like the Jenny McCarthy.
It's kinda cool, though, that this all comes down to the very first kill of the entire franchise.
Yes, we're obviously talking about the killing of, Casey Becker and, Steve. Steve, right?
Steve, yeah.
Yeah. Do we know his last name? Do we know his
Fourth.
Oh, yes, okay.
I so I'm not someone who was old enough to go into this movie thinking that maybe Drew Barrymore could be the final girl and she wasn't going to get killed in the opening. So that surprise element never was a thing for me. But it doesn't matter. That sequence is so gut-wrenching. And it's because she is so electric on screen and in that role and in her chemistry with someone that she is merely on the phone with.
Mm.
And it's like we barely see Steve in that sequence, but when he is gutted, you can feel like the absolute like
Oh, yeah.
heart-shattering effect of that on her. So I think a lot of the success I'm saying the same thing for every single one, but I can. So it's the performance. There's another iconic costume, plus a bunch of
Mhm.
very iconic now, production design elements and props between the popcorn, the phone, like that particular
Mm.
phone ring. Like I can tell if I heard that anywhere in the world, I can tell you that was her phone in Scream 1.
And I would be leaving the room because
So you have all of that, and yet again, look at how they use that space. It's
Yes.
genius, and like multiple planes in all of in many of the frames, so you feel like Ghostface could legit be anywhere, and he is. He's
He's
everywhere she is,
everywhere.
and he pops up in just the right times and in just the right ways, where I think the framing of those reveals
Yeah.
makes it super effective, a million times more terrifying than it could have been. And my God, that ending.
Oh,
I was very little when my mom took me to the theater to see this movie. I don't think she fully knew what it was. Like, my mom loves horror
mm.
movies. She doesn't regret it or anything. But sitting there with, like, single-digit age me right next to her, watching Drew Barrymore hang from a tree with her insides on the outside, I think she would probably agree with me when I would suspect that she would have the, like, "What did I just do?" like,
She
voice in her
probably had
head.
that thing of like, everyone in this theater is looking at me right now and judging me very harshly, getting
Yeah.
their judgy mum things on. I was slightly older than you, I think. So I was 12. I would have been 11 or 12. Um, and I'd snuck in, but I did also know that Drew Barrymore died. Because I actually didn't sneak in, but someone in the line bought our tickets for us, pretending their uncle. I knew Drew Barrymore died because my brother had come home from the cinema and been like, "You need to see this movie. The Drew Barrymore dies in the first 10 minutes. It's really scary,"
Oy.
which was fine. That's fine. I'm like 11. I'm like, "What's a Drew Barrymore?" But then, no. So and I do remember just how absolutely scary that scene was, and I'd never felt that level of fear in a film before. And I think the orchestration of the jump scares and all of that is just brilliant. The television through the window being like a moment that shocked me forever. You're right about iconic visuals, popcorn, the sweater, the all of that stuff, um, and her performance being just incredibly iconic. And I think what's really interesting is that it's multiple stories in one. Right? It's
Mhm.
like it's really like a great 3 act. play, where you've got that sort of flirtation and then it takes that turn and we're moving into the second act the moment we know that it's a sinister thing. And then there's like the sort of, can she play the game, blah, 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 blah. And then you have the thing with the parents, which I think is ingenious, that we see them coming down. It's almost like too much,
Yeah.
because you give us this hope, and you toy with us, and we're like a little, mouse on a sort of a cat playing with a mouse, and they're getting closer and closer and closer, and just the way that he intercuts between that vision, them coming up the stairs, and talk about framing and blocking the moment where she walks around the corner of the house as the parents are
Yeah.
coming up, and just the concept that she's been so stabbed that she can't actually speak, is absolutely shocking. And it set the tone and visual language of the entire franchise in terms of how he pops up, how we still see that glimpse of him running across the sort of behind the couch or whatever it is, and that's sort of his signature darting
Yeah.
situation. It's so good, and of course, it's incredibly heartbreaking. And just that zoom shot at the end is like the sort of very disgusting cherry on
Yeah.
top of this whole thing. I mean, it's
Perfect way to cut to the title.
you can't argue, right? You simply can't.
It's so good. So good. I love it so much. Before we wind this down, because I felt bad about not putting Scream 4 on the list, and I also didn't know how to like quite box this into one kill. I just put as an honorable mention Jill's meltdown. She kills people. She thinks she kills Sydney, but just that whole sequence of her
That's
just like
amazing.
losing her mind and revealing her master plan, and what she does to Charlie after all that, and then just throwing herself into everything in the room. So not
I,
really like a very specific kill there, but I wanted to give Scream 4 a little love.
yeah, she slayed, right? As they say. Yeah, she really. I think Emma Roberts killed in that particular performance and that moment. I think that is very iconic. If I was forced to choose a Scream 4 moment, honestly, like maybe the Olivia kill as a kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I really like
the
the Allison Brie one too. That's another one that I think gets more powerful because of the actor at the center of it.
yeah, she's very actually she does that thing that Tatum does so well of sort of suddenly becoming quite serious and realizing
Yeah.
what's going on. Although I can't watch that scene without thinking of the scene where Maya dies in Cursed, because it's the same scene.
Yeah.
Like it's Wes Craven doing car parks
I
and
get it.
keys and elevators, and it's like, yeah, I'm like,
I feel like we're gonna have to revisit this list after 5 comes out. I've got a lot of faith.
yeah, I hope so. I'm
I've got
I'm I'm
faith.
really I'm really excited.
All right. That is it for this edition of Countdown to Scream 2022. Thank you guys for watching. I don't know what we're going to do next, but it's kind of exciting that we don't know what we're going to do next, because maybe there's going to be a new promo. Maybe we'll come up with another feature idea. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm getting trailer 2 vibes.
Okay.
I'm feeling trailer 2 vibes might come.
I'll be here
Um,
standing by waiting for it. Didn't we figure out like an ending catchphrase on the last episode? And now I don't remember it.
Perri, it's an honor.
Oh, okay. Joel, it's an honor.